Yeah, now the wind is dead.
Yeah, you're like a half mil off the right side. Center.
Yeah, center hold.
Now what I mean by marrying up to the trigger is once you're ready for the shot, you've got your natural point of aim, you're on target, you got a round in the chamber. I want you to immediately marry up to the trigger, pull the slack out. A lot of people are dancing. They're coming in, they're scared of their triggers, and they're just sort of lightly touching it, lightly. I want you to pull that out. See that? Pull that out. I'm going 1-0 right at 7, Frank.
Impact. Hey, welcome to the Sniper Side online training. I'm here with Staff Sergeant Taylor, and we're in Nebraska. We just finished a precision rifle course at J&M Precision, and we want to talk trigger control and some of the things we see during these classes with the various ways people execute their trigger control. So, Mark, why don't you tell everybody what we're looking at during the class here, and we can demo some of what we think they should be doing as far as their trigger control. What I'm using is the Accuracy International AX.
It's got pretty much a combat trigger, Frank. It's got a lot of front end press. It's got a lot of front end press here. And what we want people to do is marry up, pull all the slack out, reach the back wall so that you're ready when the spotter's ready. Same can be done on a single stage trigger. It's really no different, except you're marrying up at the back wall. But knowing your trigger is very important. And this one, I know I've got a lot of slack there. See, I'm playing around with it pretty heavily.
Yep, we have that first stage. We're taking up the slack of the first stage, and we're going to the wall of the second stage, which then becomes like a single stage trigger for us. And so we're press, break, and freeze when we do that. And that's the big key element of this, that we want to make sure you're in contact with that trigger, because show everybody how we see when we tell them they have too much trigger in there. We see guys at the joint and they're really far in there, and then we have the tip guys who are on the side and they're off to the side. And a lot of them with the single stage triggers, they're tapping it. They're afraid of the trigger. They got it set really, really light, and as soon as they get near it, it's gonna fire, and they tap and they bounce right off that trigger. So, you know, as far as the combat trigger goes, that's why the 2-stage lets you be in control. What's it called?
Trigger control.
Right. So then what we're doing is we're putting it on the pad of the finger and just demonstrate some really good trigger control right there. Good. So it's barely moving. Now show them how much over travel there is if you slammed it in the back and crushed it. See that? He's crushing the trigger right there. And what we see is people trying to drive that trigger through the stock into their shoulder. That's not how it works. It's press, break, freeze. Like that. It's barely perceivable how much movement's going on when you look at it. It's not a lot, even though that trigger has a ton of slack in it. So you single stage guys, you want to make sure you get there, you marry up, and it's going to be, it should be imperceivable, especially like we've been talking with the Trigger Tech triggers that have very little movement. You don't want to drive it, you just want to break it. And you had some really good words of wisdom with the guys as far as that goes, that to prevent them from trying to drive that trigger through.
What you hear is press, break, freeze. Just like that.
Yep.
Press, break, freeze. You're going to hear that 1,000 times at our course.
And just remember, we're keying off the sound, right? So that firing pin dropping, that's what we key off of. So as soon as that happens, that's when the shooter should freeze, remain in position. And now talk to them about how some guys want to run to the bolt immediately instead of watching the shot. Now, we've just been shooting 1,100 yards, 1,200 yards, so there's a little longer time of flight. We want to see the result of the impact. So what happens is, Mark will run the bolt. 1,001, 1,000, yeah, they do that.
And they've got nothing. It's all on the spotter now. They've got nothing. What I want to see is
1,001, 1,002, hit the target, then run the bolt, results, fix it. That's what we're looking for when it comes down to trigger control. Oh, in the Mechanics of the Firing Hand article on the front page, Mark talks about your graspers and pinchers. He's pulling the rifle back into the shoulder pocket because you have to support that firing task. And then he's isolating his thumb on the other side, and that prevents his pincers from giving him some sympathetic movement. That's what those shelves are for. And floating the thumb is doing, is isolating that thumb. So then he can just press, break, and freeze. That's what you got.
I'm Staff Sergeant Taylor. Press, break, and freeze.
Less wind. Impact.